Welcome back. This video will explain how to work with tables in the Reports module. HearForm Pro is a database, and a database needs a place to store its data. Let's go to the Reports area here and take a look at how HearForm stores its data. These tables are very similar to an Excel spreadsheet. As you can see, we have columns and we have rows. The rows represent individual records, in this case addresses, and the columns represent the field names, Street 1, Street 2, etc. Let's go back to our tables area by clicking this button here. We'll go down to the hearing aids table, and again you can see columns and rows. The rows represent individual hearing instruments. The columns represent the information within those we call fields. So for example, with this particular serial number, it's for the left ear, it's a white X product, etc. Now you can modify by clicking this button here most tables, and when you pull up this modify table view, you can actually slide items up and down. For example, this item area here is not showing, but I can show that by checking the box and then move that up. I'll just move it right before the serial number area, and I'll click OK. And now you'll see we have an item category. Now that may not really matter because in most cases your devices will be hearing instruments, but then again you may have serialized ear molds or serialized receivers or things like that, so you may want to show your item category, but you may not want it there. So let's go back here, and if you want to keep it but you just want it off in an area off to the side, you certainly can do that. So there are a number of other fields or columns here, such as dome size or speaker size, etc. And we just don't have a lot of room on the screen, so you'll have to scroll over to see them. But let's just show those two there, and we can scroll over and we'll see at some point the dome size and speaker size there. Now I don't know if we have much of that information in the system. There are 909 devices here. So just a few of them in my sample data have a dome or a speaker, but I think you get the idea. Let's go back and look one more time under Modify. Another thing that's often hidden is the cost. So if you don't want that to be seen, you can hide that, or the price that the patient paid. Generally, the price and the cost are stored with line items themselves. This is a hearing aid table, which is a little bit different than the line item table where all your charges are. But I think, again, you get the idea that a table lets you manipulate that data and view it in a number of ways. Let's look at a couple other things we can do with a table. Each table may be a little bit unique. So for example, with the device table, I can find stock, loaners, and demos because I have some buttons that do that. But I can also show all rows, and if I wanted to, I could find all instruments or devices that match a particular criteria. For example, if I right-click the word Phonak, I can find, in the right-click menu, find matching records. So I've isolated all my Phonak products. I can then come up to this triangle that appears when I hold the mouse over the top or in the header. I can sort ascending or descending. And so that's going to sort alphabetically. I may want to go back to the first row and see the beginning. And of course, numbers in our system come before letters, and then it's numeric alpha essentially. So you can sort or arrange, and you can kind of look through some of these. I won't get into great detail as far as adding or trailing or leading grand summaries or grouping them, but I'll just do one and give you a quick example. So in the circuit area, I can add a trailing group by circuit, and when I do that, then it will count up all of those based on the fact that I've already added a count under trailing subtotals. So I've added a count. Now if this were a number field, then I can actually add numerical things like currency, the total number of a total value for those, the running total, average, minimum, maximum, standard deviation, and fractions. But with text fields, I can only do so much. So in this case, I'm counting them up, 3 of these and 6 of those and 11 of these, etc. So that kind of gives you something to play around with there. You can pull up charts, but we already have some charts that you may want to look at instead. These are a little bit complicated and beyond what we'll be talking about in this video. We can also unsort our rows, which just puts them back in the condition that they were found, the order that they were added to the system. We still have 313 out of 909 showing. So again, I can show all rows. I can create a new row or delete a row if desired. And I can also come over here and export the found set, in this case all 909, but I can export that, and that's an automatic export that we've predetermined what's important, and it may be way more than you actually want, but as I scroll over you'll see some of that information here, much of it not filled in because I don't have all that data in my sample data area. But you can always remove those columns if they're not important to you. Let's minimize that. And if I did instead an Ask Me export, then it takes longer, but then you have more control over it. You can decide what type of file it is and which specific fields you want exported. So again, in this case, we can delete a device, but other times, if we click Tables again, it's not going to say delete a device. It may be delete an address or something like that. So find incomplete addresses if there are any. So some of these buttons are unique to the table that they're in. So let's go back here and just kind of look through some of these. You may not really care about the data this way. We talked earlier about the audiogram table to be able to see all the audiograms for a particular patient. And you might find that working with tables is very helpful, especially in the invoicing module, line item area, and the payment area. So very briefly, let me cover this. I've covered it in another video. But here, for example, I can do a search in any one of these, but I'm going to do a quick search here for everything created in the month of 1 or January. I don't have to put the year. Watch what happens when I leave the field. It adds the rest for me. 1/**/2019 means any day in the month of January. Let's perform the find, and here I have 67 line items that match that criteria. So once you've done that again, you can sort or arrange them by the item category or by supply or circuit size, any number of different things, even a combination of those things here. So again, we have some sort options here. This is much more advanced than you'd have in the address table, for example. But there are a lot of things that you can do once you learn how to work with tables. It's a little bit more advanced than just regular reports, but you have a lot more control and you have full access to your information with proper credentials. Hopefully you'll get a lot of that out of that, and I hope you've enjoyed watching the video.